Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Mahasamaya Sapa Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Mahasamaya Sapa Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Samaya Sapa Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Samaya Sapa Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Samaya Sapa Ahum He Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dena Patita Dina Memoa Sutukaya Memoa Supakaya Memoa Anarakta Memoa Saraseni Membrayata Sarakama Sutame Sitim Guru Ha Ha Ho Bhagavan Saratata Gata Vajrama Vimuta Vajrama Samaya Sapa Ahum He But just as I was leaving my room, I saw a spider on the wall going after a little moth. And I thought, oh, I have to save the moth. So I managed to get the moth outside. And then I thought, oh, but the spider's hungry. It's like a really difficult situation. But I just figure, if you're in that situation and you do have a chance to save the creature, then that's the right thing to do. Hopefully the spider will find something else to eat, but they eat bugs. So, yeah, this is samsara. Lots of problems, lots of suffering. Okay, so let's do the the prayers. To the teacher and doubt, transcendent destroyer, one that's gone, foe destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one God of bliss, no the world's supreme guide, beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and humans, you, the Buddha and doubt, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make
make offerings and go for refuge. When I was supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paid 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With a supreme sign, face like that spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, revealed of merit and good qualities, sends an ocean to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom, too well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash, of lightning and clouds, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the fall of false, and be delivered from the ocean of psychic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, foreland, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam Guru Ramnamandalakam Niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create, by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
So let's take a few minutes to settle down, make sure that our attention, our mind, our awareness is in the present, here and now. So yesterday afternoon we looked at the immeasurable joy, third immeasurable, and there's a practice in Tibetan Buddhism that's connected with that. It's called rejoicing. And it involves feeling happy about virtue. And that can include our own virtue, good things we do, as well as the virtue that others do, including the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas. So we can think, for example, yesterday we took precepts and spent our time listening to Dharma, meditating, practicing, keeping silence as much as possible. So doing a lot of good deeds, a lot of virtue. And likewise this morning, you got up early and you went to the session and practiced. So understanding that doing virtuous actions like this is the cause of happiness and peace, both for ourselves and for others and for the world. And this is what everyone wants. So it makes sense to feel happy, rejoice in all that virtue. So just take a few moments to do that. And when we rejoice, it's also good to feel the wish, the aspiration that we and others will continue to create virtue, continue to do virtue, virtuous actions, good deeds as much as possible. So take a few moments to generate that wish. And we can apply that to this session we're about to start. Feel the wish that this session will be the cause of happiness for ourselves, for all other sentient beings, and help us get closer to enlightenment, the ultimate happiness. So rejoicing is really a beautiful practice, and it's virtuous. So when we rejoice in virtue, we create virtue by doing that. So they say it's like an easy way to create virtue. And you can be lazy. You can lie in bed or lie on the beach or wherever you are, whatever you're doing, generate those kinds of thoughts. Feel happy about the good things that people have done in the past and are doing at the present, will do in the future. Rejoice in your own good deeds. So just bringing to mind the good things that people are doing and feeling, oh, how wonderful that is. I'm so glad they're doing those things, and I hope they continue doing those things more and more, as much as possible. So just within a few minutes, there's an immediate effect. You do feel happy. It brings happiness, joy into your mind. And you can't be depressed at the same time you're feeling joy, right? So it kind of chases away any depression or any despair or sense of hopelessness, looking at all the awful things happening in the world. So, at least for a few minutes, you can take a break from those types of thoughts and feel joyful and create virtue at the same time. So it's a really good thing to do. So this morning, I thought, because some people are going to be taking refuge later this morning, and also the 5 precepts. So I thought to go through what that means, refuge and precepts, to help those people be more prepared. And for those who've already taken refuge and precepts, it's like a reminder, a refresher. And then those who might be thinking, maybe in the future I'll do that, but right now I don't know enough about it. So this can help you, because I haven't really talked that much about refuge. We have this prayer we're saying many times a day, I take refuge, but you might be wondering, what does that actually mean? And I think last night you did this ceremony that, did I forget my glasses? Never mind. I can manage. This little ceremony in the blue prayer book. I guess did you just read through it? I've never just reading through it. So I thought to go through that and explain things and give you a chance to ask questions. So the first part, I guess you don't have the book. Some of you may have the book, Blue Prayer Book. Yeah, okay, it's page 84. Yeah, I've never done this before because it isn't something in the Tibetan tradition that Tibetan lamas made up, but it was written by Venerable Chödrön. And I think it's really beautiful, really skillful, because we monastics have a ceremony that we do every full moon and new moon to renew our precepts, purify any broken ones. And it just makes sense that people who hold the lay precepts would also have an opportunity to do that. I think in Buddhist countries like Sri Lanka, Thailand, and so on, I think lay Buddhists go to their temple on new moon and full moon days, and they take 8 precepts and spend the day praying and practicing and renewing their precepts. So it is something done in Buddhist countries. So the first part is a purification verse. I'm not sure where that comes from, but it's part of our monastic practice that's called Poshada, the one that we do. I guess it's from the Chinese tradition, or no, it's actually from the King of Prayers. Huh? Yeah, it's part of the King of Prayers, which in turn comes from one of the sutras, the Avatamsaka Sutra, really long Mahayana sutra about the Bodhisattva path. Yeah, so this is like a confession, a verse of confession, purification of our misdeeds. So then, following that, renewing refuge and precepts, sort of addressing spiritual mentors, our teachers, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who abide throughout infinite space. Please pay attention to me. So it's said that in the Mahayana tradition, it's said that, there's actually lots of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and they aren't far away in some other galaxy, some other universe. They're with us. They're around us all the time, and we just don't have the ability to see them, partly because of our obscurations and defilements. Our mind is, covered by those, and that prevents us from being able to see them. But they do say that when you purify a lot, then you do have the ability to see Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So they're just there, and they're ready to help us. But we need to turn our attention to them. We need to put our focus on them and feel that they are there and ask for their help. Then it says, from beginningless time until the present, in my attempt to find happiness, I have been taking refuge, but the things I have relied upon have not been able to bring the lasting state of peace and joy that I seek. So, there was a talk that Lama Yeshe gave. He's probably done this many times, but he said refuge isn't new. It isn't something unknown to us. We do take refuge. We have taken refuge, but in things that don't really bring what we want. So taking refuge in money and possessions and boyfriends and girlfriends, sex, drugs, alcohol, food, entertainment, sports, the whole list. More and more things all the time. It's just amazing how the human mind comes up with so many things that we can buy, that we can use, different kinds of sports, new things that you can try that might kill you, but never mind, it's thrilling. So it's like, I don't know. We've done many of those things. But then did they, what was the result? Did they bring us the happiness? That's what we were looking for. That's what we wanted. We wanted happiness. We wanted to feel good. We wanted to be satisfied. Yeah? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's important to understand. According to Buddhism, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. We should be happy. Buddha wants us to be happy. But real happiness, genuine happiness. So there's one teaching I came across that I found really helpful about different kinds of happiness. So it's not all happiness is the same. So one kind of happiness is related to sense pleasures. So when we have experiences with our five senses, things that we see, things that we hear, smell, taste, and tactile sense, feeling with our body. So we have those five senses. So when we have experiences with any of the five senses that are pleasant, make us feel good, that's one kind of happiness. Yeah, there is some happiness there, but it's quite transitory. It doesn't last very long. If you really check carefully, it lasts a few minutes, maybe longer, but eventually it fades, it disappears. And so it's very impermanent, transitory, ephemeral. They say it's like a rainbow. It appears, but then a short time later it's gone. And that's probably the kind of happiness most people in the world know and are running after, and that's why there's all these products to buy and things to do, places to go, cruises to join, and so on. It's just like, whoa, expanding more and more all the time. And And people are trying to be happy, which is fine, but those things don't bring real happiness. Just a few moments of pleasure. And then there's a second kind of happiness, which is, I like to call it spiritual happiness, because it comes from positive states of mind, like cultivating love, compassion, joy, those four measurables, and contentment, and cultivating the good qualities of the mind that are going against our afflictions, like anger and attachment and greed and jealousy. So when we work on our mind and we cultivate those positive qualities and reduce the negative ones, then that leads to another kind of happiness, which is deeper. It's, deeper inside. And I think it's more lasting. I mean, it's also impermanent, but it does last longer. And it's more satisfying. So I think we can see that in our experience. Even people who don't meditate, when they care about somebody else, they're taking care of someone they love, it's a family member or a friend, they really love that person, care about that person, and maybe that person is sick or they're depressed, they need help. So when you put your attention on that person and try to help them, it really feels good, doesn't it? If you're a parent, some of you are parents, right? You brought up children. And there's a joy, a satisfaction in doing that, despite the hardship. But I've heard mothers say it's just so wonderful. This is the happiest thing in their life, the most wonderful thing in their life is taking care of children. And so we can all experience that, even if we're not parents, but taking care of our family and our friends or pets. A lot of people, instead of having kids, they have pets, right? Maybe a little easier than kids. That's expensive too. I mean, if you bring a child into the world, I remember seeing somewhere, somebody figured out how much you're going to have to spend to raise that child and see them through school and then university. Whoa, it's a lot of money. Now, pets can be expensive too, but not that much. And maybe a little less troublesome. They usually don't commit crimes and end up in jail, and then you have to go and bail them out. Or maybe they do. I remember there was a story about this dog that walked into a supermarket and went directly to the pet food section, grabbed a bag of treats, and walked out. I was like, whoa, how did... And they had him on closed-circuit TV. But he probably didn't have to go to jail. Anyway. Okay, calm down. So what was I? So I was talking about, the second kind of happiness that we can experience when we have positive thoughts, positive feelings, and do positive things, especially helping others, caring for others. So that brings another kind of happiness, which is more kind of deep and spiritual and pure. And also a good thing is that kind of happiness you can generate anywhere, anytime. You don't need, because the first kind of happiness, we need these objects. We need a certain kind of food, a certain kind of drink, a certain kind of, smell and environment in order to have those experiences. Whereas the second kind of happiness, if you know how to generate positive thoughts in your mind, you can do it anywhere, even if you're sitting in jail. Or you're in another country and you can't get the kind of food you want to eat. You can do something with your mind to bring yourself into a happy state of mind. So that's a better quality happiness than the first one. And that's a big part of Dharma, our Dharma practice. Learning how to do that, learning how to transform our mind and change it from a negative state, like being unhappy, angry, and so on, to a positive state. And yeah. And then there's a third kind of happiness that comes from concentration. So there you have to meditate and develop, train your mind to stay concentrated. But when you reach a high level of concentration, what's called calm abiding, shamatha, Venerable calls it somewhat serenity. There's different terms for it. But that brings an incredible happiness. They actually call it bliss. Bliss in body and mind. That's like nothing we've ever experienced. The best experience that we could have. But you do have to work for it. But that's a better kind of happiness, very long-lasting. And again, once you know how to generate it, you can do it anywhere, anytime. And then there's even higher forms of happiness that come from cultivating wisdom that understands how things exist. What's the real nature of things? They don't, it's not what we normally think. The normal way we see things, how things appear and how we believe them to exist is completely wrong. It's completely erroneous. And that's really the root of all our suffering, all our problems, because we don't see the reality. We don't see things as they are. So we cultivate wisdom that understands the true nature of things, like yesterday I mentioned emptiness, selflessness. And when you cultivate that wisdom, that's the antidote to the afflictions. That wisdom is like the remedy, the medicine that gets rid of the afflictions. Not all at once. It's not that easy, but gradually you overcome the afflictions so that they stop arising. And so that brings the best kind of happiness, because your mind is really peaceful and pure and not disturbed by the ordinary afflictions like anger and hatred and aversion and irritation and greed, desire, restlessness, and so on. So, yeah, really a peaceful. I haven't been there. Don't think I'm talking from first-hand experience, but those who have, this is what they say. So the point is, there are different kinds of happiness. And what the Buddha wants us to achieve is the higher forms of happiness, the happiness that comes from purifying the mind, developing concentration and compassion and love and wisdom, those positive qualities. So he's trying to guide us to achieve those forms of happiness, which are far more satisfying than just sense pleasures. And we can get a taste of that in meditation, sometimes, maybe not always. Sometimes you're sitting there struggling, but maybe sometimes you have moments of feeling really peaceful and satisfied and happy and wow, you don't even want to leave. You want to keep going, sitting there. So we can get a taste of better forms of happiness that help us be less attached to the first level of happiness, eating and traveling and sex, and because those aren't so satisfying. So you gradually have less attachment to them, and you're more interested in spiritual practice and cultivating higher forms of happiness. So the fact that you're here probably indicates you know this already. So up until now we have until now I have taken refuge in material possessions, money, status, reputation, approval, praise, food, sex, music, and a myriad of other things. Although these things have given me some temporal pleasure, like that first type of happiness, they lack the ability to bring me lasting happiness because they themselves are transient and do not last long. My attachment to these things has in fact made me more dissatisfied, anxious, confused, frustrated, and fearful. So that might ring a bell. Seeing the faults of expecting more from these things than they can give me now, I now turn for refuge to a reliable source that will never disappoint me. So this usually takes time for us to get to that point. It's not too difficult to get to the previous one of realizing that the things we've been trying to take refuge in and get happiness from haven't delivered the goods. And but to get to this next point, we need to learn more about the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, what they are and how they can benefit us and so on. So that could take years, yeah. It's really good to learn and study and think, meditate and practice, and eventually you might get to that point. Although some people rush it, and I have to admit, I did that. I started learning Buddhism in the Tibetan library in Dharamsala, India. And within the first couple of months, the teacher was giving a refuge ceremony. I jumped in. I felt ready. But I was only 21 at the time, and But anyway, I don't regret it. And but I really didn't know what I was doing. So I do recommend that people think more carefully and really, understand these three jewels and why they are worthy objects of refuge. So it says, I take refuge in the Buddhas as the ones who have done what, in the depth of my heart, I aspire to do. So again, you have to check if that is really what you want to do. Purified their minds of all defilements and brought to fulfillment all their positive qualities. Yeah, so, when we learn the Dharma, we learn about defilements. Defilements can include afflictions, the different kinds of afflictions, greed, hatred, ignorance, jealousy. There's a lot others that we haven't talked about here, but these are mental states, emotions, disturbing emotions that come up and disturb our mind and can also disturb our life. They can incite us to do things. That's why we do negative actions, like the 10 non-virtuous actions. There's always one or more of these afflictions happening in our mind and driving us. It's almost like they take possession of us. We get possessed by them, and then we just find ourselves acting them out. And and then we end up with problems. We make problems for others, sometimes problems for ourselves, and so this is the situation. So a Buddha is someone. The term for Buddha in Tibetan language is my first name, Sangye. And it has 2 syllables. The first one, sang, has the meaning of pure. And so that refers to the fact that a Buddha is someone who has totally purified their mind of everything that is deluded, afflicted, problematic, all suffering and all causes of suffering, totally purified, such that they will never come back. It's not like, they're gone for a while and then later they come back. But it's possible to completely purify those such that they never return. And that's not easy. It takes time. But the Buddha is someone who has done that. And then the second syllable is gye, which has the meaning of expanded or increased. So that refers to their good qualities, like love and compassion and wisdom and patience and so on. So Buddha is someone who has developed those good qualities to the highest degree, such that they're always there, always present. It's not like they come and go, but always, every minute, every second. So love, for example, loving kindness in the mind of a Buddha, it extends to every living being without exception. Even the teeny little insects, the fish down on the bottom of the ocean, beings in other realms. So they are able to see all those beings, and they feel nothing but love and compassion for them, and this wish to help them, looking for ways to help them be free of suffering. So a Buddha's mind is in that state all the time. They don't have to, sleep and take coffee breaks and, go on holidays. It's like they've taken care of everything they need to do for themselves. So now they're able to just totally dedicate all their energy to others, to helping others. And so all the positive qualities, all the good qualities, beneficial qualities in the mind of a Buddha have been totally developed to the highest degree. So that word, that term, Sangye, has that meaning. But that doesn't mean I'm there. I hope to be there one day, but a long way to go. And then, so that's one way of understanding the Buddha. And there isn't just one Buddha, there's many Buddhas. So sometimes we use the expression the Buddha, and that refers to the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, who lived in India in the 4th or 5th century BC. But there's many other Buddhas. Before Shakyamuni Buddha in the past, there were Buddhas, and there will be Buddhas in the future. And there are Buddhas in other worlds, other places. There are Buddhas in this world who aren't necessarily looking like a Buddha. They're kind of in disguise, incognito, working to help us, maybe in this room. Because Buddhas can manifest in different forms to help people and beings in different ways. So there are many Buddhas. And they all have those same qualities of mind being totally free of all that is negative and totally developed in all that is positive. So if we think about that and contemplate that, again, it may take time, but if we feel, that's someone I can take refuge in, I can rely on. And then the second object of refuge is the Dharma. I take refuge in the Dharma, the cessation of all undesirable experiences and their causes, and the path leading to that state of peace. So the Dharma is a little more difficult to understand. And the term Dharma is also used in different ways. We talk about learning the Dharma, reading Dharma books, studying the Dharma. So in that kind of sense, Dharma is referring to the Buddha's teachings, the teachings that the Buddha gave, the practices he taught. But it's said that the real Dharma are inner qualities. The last two of the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Truths are true suffering and true origins. Those are the things we want to get rid of. And then the last two truths are true cessations and true paths. Those are the things we want to attain, we want to bring into our minds. So true cessation is the absence of an affliction, like anger, such that it will never arise again. It's gone, it's finished, you're free of it forever. That's the meaning of a true cessation. So there's a true cessation for each of the afflictions. But the ultimate true cessation is nirvana. That's when all the afflictions, without exception, have been eliminated in the mind and will never come back. So that's real peace, real freedom. So that's the one type of Dharma. And then the other, the fourth noble truth, is true path or paths, it's better to say plural. And a path is actually a mind, a state of mind, a realization that we can develop in our mind that brings about a true cessation. So how do we get rid of all those afflictions and negative things in our mind is, like I mentioned before, realizing the true nature of things, emptiness, the wisdom, realizing emptiness. That's the main true path. Because when that arises in our mind, that gets rid of the afflictions. So that's the main true path. But there are other paths as well, like bodhicitta, compassion, and so on. Those are also paths that enable our mind to be transformed into enlightened mind. So that's the real Dharma. It said the real Dharma, the actual Dharma, are those last two truths, true cessations and true paths. But the teachings of the Buddha's teachings are what we need to learn and what we need to practice in order to achieve those two things. And then the Sangha, the third object of refuge. I take refuge in the Sangha, those who have directly realized reality and who want to help me do the same. So the term Sangha is used in different ways. It's used for monastics, although strictly speaking it needs to be not just one, but a minimum of 4 fully ordained monks or fully ordained nuns. And the reason for that is there's certain rituals that we carry out, and to do those rituals properly, there needs to be at least 4 of us. So one example of that is giving ordination. If somebody wants to become a monk or a nun, then they have to go, there's a ceremony for ordaining them. And to perform that ceremony, there needs to be a minimum of 4 fully ordained monks or nuns to do that. And likewise, the poshada, the confession ceremony we did last night, to do that properly, there needs to be at least 4 fully ordained monastics. So that's the real meaning of Sangha in terms of monastics. But then the real meaning of Sangha, the real Sangha, are those who have realized emptiness, those who have gained that wisdom that directly realizes emptiness, that is the remedy, the antidote to the afflictions. So such beings, there's a term in Sanskrit, Arya. So an Arya is someone who has gained that realization. And it's hard to know who they are. There isn't like a directory where you can look them up and find their email address and their phone number. Because one thing is, you're not supposed to talk about your realizations. It's not like when you get a realization, then you put it on your Facebook page so everybody in the world knows. But you're supposed to keep quiet about that. And the reason for that is that I think at the time of Buddha, some people were claiming to have those realizations, even though they didn't. And that can mislead people. And then people get confused. Who really has realized emptiness and who hasn't? So it's actually one of our precepts to not talk about our realizations. We can talk about them with our teachers and with others who have attained that realization, but not in a public way. That just leads to problems. But they say, you can kind of tell by a person's behavior, their kind of vibration they give off, whether they have realizations or not. So anyway, there are 3 jewels of refuge, 3 objects of refuge that we take refuge in. And you might wonder, why does there have to be 3? Why can't we just have 1? I'm not sure, but they do play different roles. And there's an analogy used for the 3 jewels in the case of a person who's sick. Like if you're really sick, you're really ill, then you need a doctor who can diagnose what you have and treat you, give you the right medicine, the right medical care. So you need a doctor, and then you need the medicine. And you need nurses. If you're, really sick and you can't take care of yourself, you need nurses or other caregivers to help you while you're recovering. So in a similar way, we are like suffering with the illness, the disease of afflictions, mental afflictions, greed, hatred, ignorance, and so on. So we're like a patient. And the Buddha is like the doctor, who can tell us what we've got, what's wrong with us, and what we need to do to get better. And then the Dharma is like the medicine that we take to or practice in order to get ourselves to a state of health. And then the Sangha are like the nurses or caregivers that help us while we are on the way to recovery. So, in another way of talking about Sangha is like spiritual friends. It's hard to follow the path on your own. Some of you may have tried that. You're the only person in your family and your community who's learning Buddhism and meditating, and it's hard going if you don't have any people around who understand what you're doing and do it with you and support you. So being in a community, you can experience that here during the retreat. It just makes such a huge difference in your ability to practice, meditate, and feel that what you're doing is right. So, spiritual friends, a spiritual community is really important. And so that might help understand why there are 3 jewels, 3 objects that we take refuge in rather than only one. Then the next part says, I take refuge not only in the outer 3 jewels, those beings who are Buddhas or Sangha and the Dharma and their mind streams, but I also take refuge in the inner 3 jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, that I will become in the future. Because I have the Buddha potential within me at this very moment and will always have this potential as an inseparable part of my mind, the outer 3 jewels will act as the cause for me to be transformed into the resultant inner 3 jewels. So in the scriptures, they do talk about these 2 kinds of refuge, 2 levels of refuge, outer and inner. So the outer refuge are those who have already attained enlightenment, the Buddhas, and the Dharma, the true paths, true cessations in their minds, and the Sangha, the Aryas, who also have the true paths, true cessations in their minds. So that's the outer refuge. So taking refuge in those is like outer refuge. And then inner refuge is our own potential. One day, it's hard to believe, but one day we will be there. We will be a Buddha. We will have the Dharma in our mind streams, true paths, true cessations, and we will be the Sangha, an Arya being who is able to guide others, to help others on the path. And so we have that potential within us, Buddha potential or Buddha nature. And that's something that can never be destroyed. That's really, it's hard to believe in the beginning, but no matter what we do, even if we do the most horrible crime, most horrible thing in the world, that nothing can destroy that Buddha nature, that Buddha potential. And there's actually two kinds of Buddha nature, Buddha potential. One is the emptiness of the mind. That's the true nature, the ultimate nature of our mind, that it's empty of inherent existence, independent existence, true existence. That's the ultimate nature of our mind. And that is something that is indestructible. It's also the ultimate nature of everything else, of a door and a computer and a table. So everything has emptiness of inherent existence as its true nature, its ultimate nature. But the emptiness of the mind is particularly special, because if we can realize that, then that will enable us to achieve nirvana and enlightenment. And also the emptiness of our mind is what makes it possible for the afflictions, the delusions, the negative parts of the mind, the defilements of the mind to be eliminated, because they don't exist as permanent features, permanent fixtures in our mind. They're adventitious, they're temporal. They're like clouds in the sky that are going to go away if we do the right things. But that emptiness, the true nature of the mind is always there, indestructible. And when we can kind of uncover it, realize it, then that's the key to liberation and enlightenment. So that's one meaning of Buddha nature, and that's hard to understand. It's not easy. But the other kind of Buddha nature is a little easier to understand. That's sometimes called a developmental Buddha nature or transformative Buddha nature. And that refers to the good qualities in the mind. So our mind has naturally qualities like love and compassion and a certain amount of wisdom and patience. So all the good qualities that exist are there in our mind. They've been there from beginningless time. And they too can't be destroyed. It's not possible to get rid of them. They can be sort of buried under a lot of negative stuff, but they will always be there. And so when we practice the Dharma, we are cultivating them like seeds in a garden. You want to grow some vegetables, flowers, and so on. So you put the seeds, and then you add the water, and you take care of the little plants, and eventually you'll have these beautiful plants, tomatoes and daisies and so on. So we have already in our mind the seeds of those good qualities, and our practice of Dharma is to nurture them, to grow them. So we have a beautiful garden in our mind of love and compassion and joy and wisdom and so on. So that's another aspect of Buddha nature that's not so difficult to understand, because we can see it in our experience. We can see that if we work on being more loving and kind, then that grows. It happens. We can be more loving and kind. And it feels so good to do that. And other people feel good too. So then we want to do it more and more. So the Buddha nature, Buddha potential is always there and indestructible. And then it says that 3 jewels are my real friends that will always be there and will never let me down. Being free of all judgment and expectations, they only wish me well and continually look upon me and all beings with the eyes of kindness, acceptance, and understanding. By turning to them for refuge, may I fulfill all the wishes of myself and all beings for good rebirths, liberation, and full awakening. So when we take refuge in ordinary beings who have afflictions, they can let us down, right? We've probably all been let down by people that we were close to and maybe we trusted and took refuge in and hoped that, this relationship would bring me happiness forever and ever. But that didn't work out. And, it's just because they are ordinary beings, samsaric beings. Yeah, they still have afflictions. They don't have enough good qualities. They're not objects of refuge like Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So, on the other hand, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, even the Aryas, they're not yet enlightened, but they have that wisdom, which is the antidote to the afflictions. And they're getting rid of their afflictions. And their afflictions are already greatly reduced. So Arya beings are such that they don't do non-virtuous things. Their minds are really strong and pure, and they just don't engage in like the 10 non-virtues and other kinds of harmful behavior. So they're really beings we can rely on. So here comes this analogy of this patient. Just as a sick person relies on a wise doctor to prescribe medicine and on nurses to help them, I, as a person suffering from the constantly recurring ills of cyclic existence, now turn to the Buddha, a skillful doctor who prescribes the medicine of the Dharma, ethical conduct, concentration, wisdom, altruism, and the path of Tantra. The Sangha act as nurses who encourage me and show me how to take the medicine. So I think that's a helpful analogy to understand the roles that each of the three jewels play in our life and how they can help us. And they actually say that the main object of refuge, or the real refuge, is the Dharma. Because even though the Buddha wants us to be free of suffering, the Buddha cannot extract suffering, cannot extract the afflictions, the causes of suffering in our mind. That isn't possible. If he could, he would, but it isn't possible. Each person, each being is responsible for their own mind. We are the ones who create our negative karma. We are the ones who have afflictions and get caught up in them again and again. And only we can do anything about that. We can change our mind. So reducing our negative actions, working on our afflictions, developing wisdom so that we can eventually be free of them. So this is work that we ourselves have to do. So the Buddha shows the way. He's the guide, or like the doctor telling you, you need to take this medicine, you need to stop eating that kind of food, you need to do this and that and so on. They can't do that for us. We have to do that ourselves. So that the Dharma is the medicine that does actually bring about the cure, so we can recover from the ills, the sufferings of cyclic existence. And then the Sangha help us along the way. However, being surrounded by the best doctor, medicine, and nurses will not cure the illness. The patient must actually follow the doctor's advice and take the medicine. So that you get medicine and then you go home and put it on the shelf and forget about it and don't take it. You can't blame the doctor if you don't get better. So practicing the Dharma is what we need to do. So it says, similarly, I need to follow the Buddha's guidelines and put the teachings into practice as best as I can. The Buddha's first advice, the first medicine to take to soothe my ills, is to train myself in the 5 precepts. Therefore, with a joyful heart that seeks happiness for myself and others, today I will commit myself to follow some or all of those precepts. So when people come to the point where they want to make a commitment to follow the Buddhist path, then they say it's not really necessary to go through a ceremony. You can just decide on your own that this is what you want to do and then practice it. I think that was the case. There's this journalist in Spokane who writes for, what is that newspaper? I thought she wrote for the... Anyway, I read a few of her articles. She had some contact with the Abbey. Huh? What's her name? Tracy Simmons. Yeah. I don't know if she ever came. Did she ever come here? She did come. But yeah, she wrote that she was raised in a Christian family, but she kind of became disillusioned because she saw a lot of people who were supposedly Christians, but were not really living according to Christian values, a lot of anger and so on. So then she found her way to Buddhism, I think reading books. She did come here, kind of, but never formally took refuge, but just on her own started to practice and keep these 5 precepts. And then she wrote articles I don't know if she did for all the 5 precepts, but she just described her experience on trying to keep these precepts and how beneficial it was. So it is okay to do that. You can do that on your own. But usually it's recommended that you go through a ceremony with a teacher and like formally declare. It's kind of like marriage. You know, people can live together and have an agreement to be, you know, partners. But then, you know, at some point they may decide, let's you know, make this really formal. And then they go through a ceremony, a marriage certificate, and so on. So it kind of makes it more solid, more strong. So, yeah, so there's this ceremony that you can do with a teacher. And the person giving refuge needs to be either a monastic monk or nun, or it could be a lay person, but it needs to be a lay person who has taken refuge and precepts, because then they have those in their mind stream and they can pass them on to others during this ceremony. But yeah, it's fine if you don't feel ready to do that, but you want to experiment with, you know, just practicing what the Buddha taught and maybe trying to keep these precepts. However, it is said that if you take precepts in a formal way, like in that ceremony, then your practice becomes more powerful than if you're just doing it on your own. So, for example, if you take the first precept is to not kill. So you're kind of like making a promise, a commitment that you will not kill. And you're doing this, you know, to the Buddha. The teacher is just kind of facilitating that process, but you're really making the promise to the Buddha, to the 3 jewels. So then it becomes part of your mind. And it's said that having, you know, when you take precepts, they do become part of your mental continuum. And that way you create much more merit, much more virtue than if you just stop killing without having taken a precept. Does that make sense? So taking precepts and having them in the mind stream is a way of creating a lot of merit, a lot of virtue, a lot of good karma that we need. I think of it as like fuel. If you have a car and you want to go somewhere, but there's no fuel, you're not going to get anywhere. So the fuel is what enables you to drive the car and go where you want. So I think of merit or virtue as like fuel to get going on the path towards enlightenment or nirvana. So yeah, so we need merit, and this is a great way to accumulate merit, because it's said that even when we're asleep, even when we're sleeping, and we wouldn't do non-virtuous things anyway, but having the precepts in our mind, we're continuously creating merit or virtue, like 24/7. So it is a more powerful way of progressing on the path than simply deciding on your own, oh, I'm going to stop killing. That's not a good thing to do. And doing it. Of course, that's good. You do create virtue. You create merit by doing that. But you just create more if you have that precept in your mind. Don't ask me why, how that works, but that's what I've heard from my teachers. So they really do encourage people to take precepts if you are serious about practicing. So yeah, there's the 5 precepts here. Not kill, to not steal, to not engage in unwise sexual behavior, also known as sexual misconduct, to not lie, and to avoid intoxicants. So it's good to take these with an understanding, as it says here. From my own experience and examination, I know that, doing that kind of action harms others, but also harms ourselves. Yeah, we don't really feel good about ourselves when we do those things, and so they lead to problems. And I think Venerable Chudran uses the term guardrails. She says the precepts are like guardrails. Is she the one who came up with that term? Like when you're driving on the freeway or a road, especially in the mountains, you've got these sheer cliffs on one side or the other side of the road. It's really helpful to have those guardrails there. Because if you lose control of the car, at least you're going to crash into the guardrail and not go off the cliff. So, yeah, so that's a nice analogy. There are guardrails to help us stay on track, on the path. And Alex Berzin, I don't know if he still does, but he used the expression for refuge, taking a safe direction, following a safe direction. And that's a helpful way of thinking of it as well, just deciding, I've had a lot of crashes before. I have plenty of crashes. I know what that's like, and I really want to avoid them. I really want to stay on a good road, a safe road. And the precepts act as these guardrails to help us stay on the road, stay on track. And taking precepts, we make the promise. It's like a promise, a commitment. I will try my best not to do those things, but because we still have afflictions and we have our habits from the past, it's still possible they might come up and even take over our mind, and we might break the precepts. So that happens, and it's not like the end of the world. You can purify. Now you know how to do the 4 opponent powers and do purification. So they can be purified, and also you can renew them. You can, some people wanted to renew their precepts today. But you can also do that on your own. If you could make a daily practice of, taking refuge and then reminding yourself of the precepts that you've taken and recommit yourself to them. Or like here in the Abbey, when people are here and this kind of ceremony is happening, then you can renew your precepts. And then the last part of this is kind of rejoicing. Having previously wandered in confusion and used misdirected methods in an attempt to be happy, today I am delighted to choose to live in accord with these wise guidelines of the Buddha. So that's rejoicing, feeling happy about our good deeds, our virtue. And that's really important to do. One thing that can happen, people start practicing meditation or trying to live according to the Dharma, and then they make mistakes. Like in meditation, you can't keep your mind focused on the object, and you're falling asleep, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere. And then you can feel discouraged about that, and even give up. Sometimes people give up, they get so discouraged. And that's not helpful. And again, I think this is the negative bias of the mind. We're just focusing on the mistakes that we make, the bad things we do, our failures, and not looking at the positive side. Just the fact that we try. We're trying to control our mind. We're trying to meditate. We're trying to be more loving and kind. We should appreciate that. We should, it's a bit like, if you're a parent and you have a child and you're always pointing out the mistakes of the child, that's all you ever talk about, are their mistakes, their faults, what they're doing wrong. How's that child going to grow up? Probably going to be miserable. So, just as we need to point out the good things the child does, appreciate them, encourage them, we need to do that with ourselves as well. So we need to give ourselves, a pat on the back when we're doing something good, and rejoice in the good that we're doing, even if it's not perfect, it's not as good as we want to be, but we're at least trying, we're doing our best. So that's very, very important, so that you give yourself encouragement to keep going, not give up, and take joy in your practice. So you want to keep doing it. Yeah, remembering that the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and Arhat. So the term Arhat, that refers to someone who's attained nirvana, who's become free of samsara, suffering and the causes. Those beings I admire so much have also followed these guidelines. I too will enter the path to liberation and awakening just as they have done. May all beings throughout infinite space reap the benefits of my living in accord with the precepts. May I become a fully awakened Buddha for the benefit of all. So really feeling happy and enthusiastic to continue practicing, following this path. I can see there's a pile of questions over here. I haven't even finished the previous ones, but there will be a chance this afternoon. So whatever I can't do, I can. So are there any questions like about what I just talked about refuge and precepts? Because that's important to take care of. Oh, Keith?
Yeah, thank you, Venerable. I understand with taking refuge in the precepts with a teacher that somehow there becomes an affiliation with the preceptor and the person taking the refuge and precepts, a teaching-student relationship. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, in Buddhism, it's considered very important to have a teacher. And some people think, oh, it's good enough to just read books and learn on the internet, watch videos, and you can learn a lot that way. But if you don't have the chance to meet and be with and learn from living teachers in a real life situation like this, I think it's incomplete. Because ideally, a teacher is someone who has been practicing, learning and practicing, living. So you can kind of learn a lot from their behavior, being in touch with them, talking to them and so on, and just observing how they do things. So, yeah, and so it is important to have that kind of relationship. But it's a complex subject, and I would recommend reading in Volume 2, Foundation of Buddhist Practice. There's a couple of chapters in there about teachers, how to choose a teacher. You need to know what qualities to look for and try to find a teacher who has those qualities. And take time, don't rush into, some teachers can be really charismatic and dazzling and and you get all caught up and think, oh, this person must be a Buddha. And then later you find out they're not, and maybe even fraudulent. So yeah, we do need to really take time and care to check a teacher's qualities, and not just while they're teaching, but behind the scenes, things they do. So that's one thing. And then, how to relate to the teacher. But there's also, and then I like the Dalai Lama's explanation of this, different levels of teachers. There's, like, the first level are those who give refuge and precepts, and that's kind of the basic level. And then there's Mahayana teachers who teach the Bodhisattva path. And then there's tantric teachers who teach the tantric path, who give initiations and teach the tantric path. And so there's different ways of relating to those teachers according to those levels. So in taking refuge, when you take refuge in 5 precepts, it's that first level. And so you need to respect that teacher, try not to go against their advice, try to follow their advice. But you can still discuss things. If your teacher asks you to do something and you're uncomfortable about it, you know, you don't have to blindly follow them, but you can discuss, you know, share your thoughts and experiences, but always try to do so in a respectful way. So that's the bottom line, is just being respectful. But one thing is, the person you take refuge in doesn't necessarily have to be your main teacher, your root guru, because later you may meet other teachers that you feel a stronger affinity with, you want to follow them, and that's completely okay. I mean, that's how it was for me when I took refuge with Geshe Ngawan Dargay, who was the teacher in the Tibetan library at that time. But then I got kicked out of India. Well, I had to leave India for visa reasons, and I went to Nepal, and then I went to Kapan Monastery and stayed there, and that's where I got ordained and was following Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So they kind of became my main teachers. So that's completely fine to do. You still have to maintain, you know, respect for the teacher you take refuge with, but it doesn't mean you have to continuously stay with that teacher. You can find other teachers later. Is that kind of answering your question? But yeah, it's good to read. You have volume 2? You have that book?
I actually have read through that, and I will reread through it. Yes. Thank you.
It's a lot of material in there, yeah. So there is an explanation in there about that first level of teacher. I forget what it's called. Is it Vinaya teacher or? I don't remember the term used, but it's kind of like that first level of teacher. And then there's also, Alex Burson also has really nice explanations. There's other teachers that teach you meditation, like when you go to a Dharma center and you learn meditation from someone, and that person might be someone who's just a little bit advanced from you and not necessarily fully qualified. Other teachers who teach you how to do rituals and so on. So there's lots of different kinds of teachers, and it's good to know that not all teachers are the same, and the way you relate to all of them doesn't have to be the same.
I'm curious your thoughts on the kind of like the oomph or the power of taking the lay precepts when kind of compared, like if someone, you know, determines like in their heart that I'm going to follow these precepts and this is what I'm going to do, compared to taking refuge and precepts formally with a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what I said earlier. They say that there's more virtue, more merit created if you do it in the formal way. Because there's a lot of discussion about what exactly are these precepts, or what kind of phenomena are there. And our tradition says they're actually a kind of subtle form, a form that arises in our mind when we do that ceremony. And that stays in our mind as long as we don't break them or give them back. That subtle form of the precepts remains in our mind and is like somehow constantly creating virtue or merit. That's how it's explained. I don't fully understand that, but that's what they say. And so it is more powerful than if you just try to keep the precepts on your own without going through that ceremony. More powerful in terms of your virtue, your merit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I'm curious, like if someone is, you know, keeping them from this, you know, heartfelt, just doing it on their own, like if they are, and you know, virtue is a mysterious thing, but like if that virtue is being cultivated, you know, kind of constantly when someone is not killing, you know, if they have just like decided on their own, like I'm going to, you know, make this commitment to not kill.
So what are you asking?
I'm like if it's if they are cultivating virtue when they have on their own committed to not killing, in kind of a similar way to when someone has formally, you know, taken the precept to not kill.
Well, my understanding is they are creating virtue. It is, it is a virtuous thing. It's just not as great or powerful as when you have the precept. I mean, I haven't heard any further explanation than that. That's just what's usually said in the scriptures and what the lamas teach. So that's why, I mean, it isn't absolutely necessary to take precepts, but they just say it's more effective, more powerful for your spiritual practice, your spiritual growth, than just doing it on your own. I mean, the way I think of it is, there's a ceremony and you're thinking of the Buddha and the 3 jewels and like promising, you're making that promise to the Buddha. So I feel it just seems to become stronger than just something you feel like doing. It's a good thing to do. I don't know. That's the limited understanding I have. Anyone else? He's got one.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could just talk about people taking multiple precepts with different people. I could see how you could start collecting refuge. Like obviously taking refuge with the Dalai Lama would be pretty spectacular, but if you could just talk about that a little bit. Yeah,
I think that's fine. I mean, these 5 precepts go back to the time of the Buddha. It's something the Buddha established, and they've been in existence since then, 2,600 years, and you find them in all the Buddhist traditions all over the world. So whether it's Zen or Theravada or Tibetan or whatever, they all have these same 5 precepts. Sometimes they're explained a little differently. Like Thich Nhat Hanh, for example, really elaborates on the different precepts. But the basic, like not killing and so on, those are the same. So I don't think it matters if you take them from different teachers, different traditions. They might have different interpretations, different explanations of them. But yeah. And as far as collecting, I don't think you would collect, as long as you're a lay practitioner, you're not becoming a monastic, I don't think you would collect more than these. There are just these 5, as far as I know, in all traditions. I mean, some traditions have bodhisattva precepts. In Mahayana traditions, they have bodhisattva precepts. That's a different thing, different set of precepts. And those do differ, the bodhisattva precepts in the Chinese tradition and the bodhisattva precepts in the Tibetan tradition. Some are the same. I think mostly they're the same, but there's some differences in them. So that would, be a difference. But I think as far as the 5 precepts go, there aren't differences between the way they're taught and explained in the different traditions. So if you take the 5 precepts in one tradition, then you want to go to another tradition and renew them, I think that's completely fine. It would be renewing your precepts rather than taking new ones. That's how I understand it. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Yes. Microphone here.
This person is, are you asking?
I was reading in the Blue Book that taking precepts is a lifetime vow and a lifetime commitment. I was wondering if you could speak more to that, and also what happens if at some point later in one's life one renounces those precepts or those vows, and also whether that like taking it kind of follows you into your next life.
Okay, so yeah. The 5 precepts taken by lay people and also monastic precepts that we take, those are taken for life. So it's part of the ceremony. You say, from now until I die, I will do this. And so they don't follow us into the next life. I mean, in the next life we could take them again, but it's not that they're there in the next life. And it is possible, if you reach a point where you feel, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to do something else, it is possible to give them back. Usually it's, I think, like for us, we have to give them back to someone. We have to say to another person. It doesn't have to be your teacher, it just has to be another human being to say, I'm giving back my precepts, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think you can do that as a lay person as well. With the lay precepts, you can return them. So, yeah, that's doable, but it's not recommended. So that's why it's good to really think carefully and try to feel sure that this is what you want to do, because that's what you're saying in the ceremony. From now until I die, I will do this. So it's, not a good thing for your mind to then go back on that later. Mark?
Thank you, Venerable. My question kind of centers on page 88 in the Blue Book, further on in this chapter, Guidelines. And I'm slightly confused by number 1. I'm not averse to wholeheartedly committing to a qualified spiritual teacher. I just don't know how I would do that. I'm only an hour away from here, but I'm somewhat limited in, I can't come up every day. I have other commitments, that kind of thing, but the face-to-face to me is very important. Example, during COVID, I was considered a special employee. I could go into the factory anytime, and I had to much. So I don't know how many people love remote work, but I couldn't do remote work. So when someone would say, are you working remote today? I'd be like, yeah, sure. Or I'd be sitting scrolling on the internet and just playing games because my work involves physical things. So how do we, I feel like I have many teachers. I mean, I follow your BBCs, I follow your thing, everyone's, the monastics who give those talks. I was on a trip this summer for 2.5 months, and
Okay,
every
let's
day
just,
I
let's
did
just,
that.
we're
So
over time.
how do
So
I
just,
do that?
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I think, when you take refuge, the person you're taking refuge with does become a teacher. But like I said, you can also take other teachers, and you might find someone who is the teacher, your root guru later. So I think you're just making the commitment to learn from that person, and it doesn't have to be physically present. A lot of people consider the Dalai Lama as their teacher. I certainly do, but I can't go and talk to him and hang out with him, it's just too busy. So you can still learn, like listening to their teachings, reading their teachings, try to follow their advice to the best of your ability. So it is possible to do that remotely. Although it is good if you can to at least sometimes have, a closer connection, come and be there and listen. But I think this is mainly just like, okay, I can do whatever I want. I don't need a teacher. So it is important to have some kind of connection with spiritual teachers that you follow and you ask questions, ask advice from, and so on. And that's the second of those guidelines. Listen to and study the teachings as well as put them into practice in your daily life. That's really the most important thing. The teacher can't change you. We can only change ourselves by learning and practicing the Dharma. So over time, we'll have to stop there. But again, there is a Q&A this afternoon. What is it? 2:45? 2:45 to 4. So an hour and a quarter. You can ask all your questions. And yeah, I can pass on these that I didn't have a chance to answer. Okay, so let's stop there and dedicate the merit, share it with all sentient beings.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Vajrasattva, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
And we invite Venerable Kadro to depart, and then there's an announcement for everyone else, including people online, if you can keep us online.
I'm going to stay here, so I'm going to go in a room over there and stay here during the break, so I'll take it with me, or you can take it.
And now Miriam would like to share something.
Hi. Ooh. I had planned what I was going to say, but after this teaching, I'm like, I need to organize my ideas again. Okay, let's see how this goes. I'm going to talk about the dana, making offerings to the Abbey, and I want to start by sharing something. I hope I'm quick. So, a few years ago, I had the pleasure to bring my family to the Abbey. My husband and my children were here for a couple of hours, and venerable children and the whole community did something beautiful for us. They took out all their stuffed animals, and they did a teaching, and then they all of you sang Namo Amitofo with the stuffies. So it became so powerful that almost every night, not every night, but many, many nights since then, we sing Namo Amitofo before sleeping. And the kids take their stuffies out, and they say, Mom, can you please sing Namo Amitofo? And I sing Namo Amitofo. And it's like a nurturing moment, so very deep. So fast forward to a few weeks ago, I had a very, very rough day of work. I had to start working very early that morning. I was exhausted by 8 p.m. So after dinner, clean the kitchen, go to my bed, and I just want to sleep. And the kids come to my bed and say, hey, you're not going to sing Namo Amitofo? You're not going to sing to us? And I was like a little child, and I say, can you sing to me? And so they started, Luciana, Marco was not there, but Luciana started singing Namo Amitofo and doing the same thing that I do to her. And I started singing too. And then we looked at each other and we started laughing. And it was like a laugh from our heart, a deep laugh, so powerful, so much love, so much connection, that Marco sensed something was going on. He's like, what are you doing? Fear of missing out, of that love, And I said, well, I'm so tired and I cannot sing to you tonight. Oh, I know what you need. So he went and got his big stuffed animal. Mr. Tommy Tom Toms is the name. Big bear. You need a hug from him. And the stuffed animal hugged me. And they said, it's okay, you don't have to come downstairs. We can go on our own. Wow. That happened because of Sravasti Abbey. Okay. 8 years ago I came. They were 1.5 years and 3 years old, and I was overwhelmed, loaded with guilt, exhausted. I didn't know what was going on in my life, and I did Vajrasattva, and it created so much space. And this place became my home, my spiritual home. And ever since then, I have been learning to love and to experience compassion. And because of those opportunities, there's love in my home. And I don't get only to give love, but to receive love. Love that all of you have been teaching. With your efforts, when you do these 3 months retreats that are probably exhausting, because you need to face your minds with, it's uncomfortable. And then you open your doors and you welcome us with all your wisdom, and you change our lives. And I feel so much gratitude that when yesterday you asked, what is an act of kindness you have done? I said, making offerings to the Abbey. Because it feels like a full circle. Yes, I feel so much joy giving little or a lot when I can to the Abbey. Food, online donations, putting some dollars in an envelope. There's a lot of envelopes here. Making offerings to my teachers, to all of you, because you are creating peace in a chaotic world. So I want to invite you all. For some of you, maybe this is your first time here, but I promise you that if you have some little gratitude in your hearts today, maybe you don't yet, but on behalf of the gratitude you will feel someday, I want to invite you to make an offering to Sravasti Abbey and to this wonderful teacher that just spent time with us, helping us create that space to love and to show up for others. There's many ways to make offerings. I said those envelopes everywhere here at the Abbey. If you are online, please go to the webpage. Look for that yellow button that says donate. There's other ways to donate, not only money. There's a wish list. You can send things to the Abbey, or you can come and offer service as well. And you can bring food if you live nearby, or send food also. There's many ways to show gratitude. And if you want to be selfish, also make offerings. Because guess what? When you're generous, that comes back to you. And it's true, it does come back to you. So that's all from me. There will be 2 opportunities for us retreatants to make offerings. The Dana ceremony later today for us that leave early tomorrow. We can bring our offering to that Dana ceremony, the Kata ceremony. Or tomorrow there's another opportunity after the teachings. Am I missing something important? Is it all good? Okay. Thank you.